You have been taught that ancient Egyptian medicine was a chaotic mix of superstition and frog eyes, and hopeless prayers to silent gods. A primitive world where disease meant a death sentence and physicians were merely sorcerers, draped in robes of mystery and shadow. That is the lie that history textbooks have carefully constructed to keep us in the dark about our true past. But here is the paradox: for under modern spectral microscopes, the bones of pyramid builders contain more than just calcium. They are saturated with tetracycline, a complex industrial-strength antibiotic that modern humanity believes we only invented in the 20th century. How could a civilization thousands of years away from us possess a biological compound requiring molecularly precise synthesis processes? In this episode, we will fulfill the promise of truth, and we will not view Egypt through the lens of traditional archaeology. We will decode this civilization as an advanced biotechnology infrastructure, where magic is just the word they used for forgotten material science. Imagine standing before the massive sandstone walls of the Karnak temple and touching the cold, sharp hieroglyphs with your own hands. To the ordinary eye, they are divine praises, but when you apply the mindset of a bioprogrammer, the context changes completely. You realize that those healing spells are not random poetry, but rather they are sophisticated algorithms waiting to be executed. Look closer at the process recorded in the Ebers Papyrus, which is the oldest medical document in the world and relies on logic. It follows a strict logical order where input is specific biological ingredients, and processing involves precise fermentation and extraction rituals. And output is a pharmacological agent capable of destroying bacteria at the cellular level, like a modern manufactured drug. You're seeing a pharmaceutical manufacturing process encoded as religious ritual to protect technological secrets from unauthorized access. They were not begging gods for healing, they were activating a biological protocol to fight disease with science. Have you ever wondered if impossible is just a word we use for a technology that we were never allowed to understand? We stand on the threshold of a truth that could rewrite the entire history of human medicine forever. Egyptian priests were not dreamers, they were brilliant chemical engineers who figured out how to hack the operating system of life. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you find this journey valuable. Comment below where you are watching this journey from in the world and let us know your thoughts. Now let us travel back in time and deconstruct the story of a lost world that waits to be found. We have confused primitiveness with simplicity, for this is not a container, but rather a sophisticated biological machine. Step into what archaeologists call a kitchen, but with the eyes of a bioengineer, you see a different reality. You are standing in the middle of a large-scale pharmaceutical production facility, hidden in plain sight of history. Those rows of clay jars are not for drunken feasts, they are the very first bioreactors of humanity. Observe the crafting technique and ask why they were made of that specific porous clay composition for fermentation. Modern science tells you that Streptomyces, the soil bacteria producing tetracycline, needs a specific environment to thrive over competitors. This ceramic vessel is not a passive container. It is a smart semi-permeable membrane engineered for survival. You see, the porous shell allows just enough air for aerobic fermentation, but blocks external contaminants from entering. This is micro-environmental control technology disguised as simple pottery in the sands of the ancient river Nile. When Egyptians mixed sprouted grain with Nile water, they were not just brewing beer, they were starting cell culture. Look at the data for the tetracycline rates found in ancient beer are not random or accidental contamination. It is stable and incredibly high, and if this were an accident, it would occur sporadically, not everywhere. But no, you find it everywhere, from the rich to the poor, spanning across centuries of recorded history. This points to a strict standard operating procedure of manufacturing that we have lost to the sands of time. You must ask yourself how they knew the exact temperature to activate Streptomyces without killing the fermentation yeast. They had no digital thermometers, but they possessed intuitive knowledge of clay thermodynamics and cooling water evaporation physics. They adjusted the temperature of the reactor by controlling wall thickness and placement within the cellar for optimal yield. This is the pinnacle of low-tech engineering, achieving high-performance output that rivals modern industrial standards. They turned mud into a factory producing liquid gold medicine, solving antibiotic distribution for the entire population. It was a genius public health strategy integrated into daily staples that even the World Health Organization would envy. Leave those dusty breweries behind and step immediately into the cold, sterile environment of a modern forensic laboratory. When you kill the room lights and power up the UV source, a chilling but beautiful physical phenomenon begins to unfold. The dry skeletal remains, which were merely the dull white of inanimate calcium, suddenly ignite with a vibrant luminescence. You are witnessing a ghostly yellow-green fluorescent glow radiating from femur skulls and even the teeth of 2,000-year-old mummies. This is not a supernatural phenomenon, it is the undeniable chemical signature of complete tetracycline saturation within the bone matrix. Let the laws of physics guide you, for you know that tetracycline possesses a powerful molecular affinity with calcium. When entering a living body, it seeks out bone, binding tightly and settling there like a geological sedimentary layer, waiting silently for millennia to finally glow under the exact frequency of light that you are currently shining upon it. But what makes you shudder is not its mere presence, but rather the sheer density of the accumulation inside the bones. If this were just accidental ingestion of moldy bread a few times, you would only see faint scattered specks of light. But no, you are looking at bones glowing like uranium fuel rods, revealing a level of luminescence that indicates systematic exposure. It suggests a continuous and high-dosage regimen sustained throughout the entirety of their natural lives. Zoom in on the thin bone layers and you see the glow present in every growth ring like a tree. What does this mean? It means that the flow of this antibiotic into their systems was never once interrupted. From the time they were children or even in the womb until old age, their bodies were constantly charged with this bioenergy. You must stop and reconsider your prejudice about ancient people being weak and dying young from simple infections. But the evidence before you tells a story of Stone Age Supermen possessing bodies that were chemically enhanced, protected by an endogenous antibiotic shield so powerful that it permeated deep into their very bone marrow. This is not an accidental diet, this is a deliberate universal healthcare protocol implemented across the population. You are witnessing evidence of a civilization that successfully deployed the first mass vaccination campaign in human history. Only they did not use needles, they used functional food, turning the basic biology of their population into an immune fortress. And they achieved this without knowing the concept of bacteria in the way we define it today. Or did they know, but in a scientific language that we have not yet learned how to translate? Go ahead and turn off that $1 million electronic microscope inside your mind right now. We are often trapped in an arrogant misconception, thinking that if the naked eye cannot see it, then it does not exist. And that without optical magnification devices, one cannot manipulate the microscopic world. The ancient Egyptians proved that thinking is absolute trash. Consider this paradox where they are waging war against an invisible enemy of pathogenic bacteria and winning without ever seeing its face. How do they do it? Because you are witnessing a form of stealth technology, operating at a purely cognitive level. They did not need to see Streptomyces bacteria wiggling under a lens, for they saw it through scent, color, and bubble texture. In the modern world, we need gas chromatographs to analyze chemical composition, but the Egyptians used a far more sophisticated biological sensor. They relied entirely on the highly trained sense of smell and taste possessed by the high priests to analyze the data. When a batch of yeast shifts from a sour smell to the rich aroma of moist earth, it is not cooking. It is a data signal confirming that beneficial bacterial populations have dominated and reached critical density for antibiotic production. Picture them as nuclear control room operators, but instead of digital screens they read indicators from subtle environmental changes. Does a golden film appear on the beer surface because that is the display code, showing that tetracycline is being secreted? Do the bubbles rise at a slower speed because that is the precise indicator that osmotic pressure has finally stabilized? This is what we have lost, which is a quantum intuition of life, where we separate everything into sterile test tubes. But they manipulated entire ecosystems, understanding that to make medicine, you do not build from zero, but simply lure nature. They designed perfect biological traps to nurture the right mold and eliminate toxic intruders, without a single drop of chemical antiseptic. They hacked into the operating system of nature using an invisible interface, with no metal, no plastic, and no electronic waste. Their technology dissolves completely into the land, making us think it never existed. But the results are simply undeniable. They controlled the microscopic world with a precision that we are still struggling to replicate in our modern laboratories today. Imagine you are on the battlefield with a deep open wound bleeding profusely. An Egyptian healer approaches you carrying not white bandages, but a piece of old moldy bread. Your first reflex is disgust, wanting to scream that he is infecting the wound further. But calm down, because you are judging high-end technology with the eyes of an amateur. That wrinkled green mold is not spoiled food, it is a living medical device. When the healer applies it to your wound, he is deploying an active fungal interface. Analyze its mechanism like a systems engineer, seeing mold and bacteria as mortal enemies. When you place mold into the bacteria-rich environment of an infected wound, you trigger war. That fungal cluster immediately recognizes the enemy without needing orders from a brain or human intervention. It automatically activates its internal chemical factories, synthesizing and releasing penicillin directly onto the battlefield. This is in situ production technology, unlike modern medicine, which operates like carpet bombing. You take a pill hoping a small amount reaches your toe after passing through your blood. But the Egyptian method is a precision strike where antibiotics are produced right at the hot spot. It destroys invading bacteria immediately without harming other internal organs, essentially acting as a smart patch. Because it is a living organism, is adaptive, meaning if bacteria change tactics, mold responds. It is a dynamic security barrier, a temporary artificial skin that knows how to think and fight. They did not need refrigerators because they grew medicine on kitchen shelves and activated it on patients. It was a perfect logistics solution for a world that existed long before electrical power. Expand your vision from the single individual and look at the panoramic picture of an entire population. Our modern medicine is fundamentally reactive, meaning you wait until the system reports an error before fixing. It is a passive troubleshooting process, but the ancient Egyptians were playing a completely different game entirely. They were performing predictive maintenance on an industrial scale, as forensic data shows high tetracycline at all ages. This means that loading antibiotics was not to cure a specific disease, but to reset the human baseline configuration. You must understand that the Nile Valley is an extreme environment with scorching heat and parasites in the water and terrible physical labor pressure, where a normal person with standard immunity would collapse in a few weeks. But these people moved millions of tons of stone to build eternal structures because they were biologically overclocked. By maintaining a low but continuous background concentration of antibiotics, they created an internal homeostasis hostile to pathogens. They did not wait for bacteria to attack to build defenses. Instead, they built a chemical firewall operating continuously. Think deeper about the impact on epigenetics when you radically change the chemical environment over many generations. Egyptian children inherited not just parental genes, but a gut microbiome optimized to symbiosis with these pharmacological agents. This is social engineering at the molecular level, for pharaohs managed more than just laws and whips. They managed the biological hardware of their subjects through a medically adjusted food supply, distributed to everyone. Bread and beer were not just calories, they were immune system update packets, distributed regularly every single day. You are seeing a deliberate effort to upgrade the physical durability of humanity. To match their grand ambition, step into the gleaming lobby of a modern, multinational pharmaceutical company standing tall today. You see massive file cabinets and servers holding petabytes of data on complex molecular structures. We call this intellectual property and pride ourselves on standing at the peak of medical evolution. But the brutal truth is that we are just children trying to relearn the multiplication table Egyptians memorized long ago. Consider the history of medicine not as an upward line, but as a broken circle. When the Library of Alexandria burned down, it was not just the loss of poetry or philosophy. It was a server crash event at a civilization scale, erasing billions of hours of empirical observation. What we call inventions in the last 200 years, from aspirin to penicillin, is actually just data recovery. When Alexander Fleming saw mold killing bacteria in 1928, he did not write a new chapter. He simply found a torn page from the human user manual that Egyptian priests had already drafted perfectly. The difference is we approach chemistry by brutal separation, isolating active ingredients in polluted factories. While they possessed a living molecular library, understanding that a medicinal plant is a complex coding of hundreds of substances, we struggle to decode the resonance effect in herbal medicine, often dismissing it as quackery. But to the Egyptians, it was the foundation, and they did not need to extract tetracycline from beer. They knew that the natural distribution system of alcohol and yeast was the optimal vehicle for cellular delivery. You stand before the ruins of a science that was once more complete than our own. And when you look at empty medicine jars in a museum, do not see backwardness, but see lost USB drives. We are not inventing the future, we are only trying to remember the past. As the lights from the forensic lamps fade, leaving ancient bones to sink into eternal darkness, once again, we are forced to face a humble truth that the arrogance of the 21st century has blinded us. We believe technology means metal touch screens and electricity, but ancient Egypt taught us a different lesson. That the ultimate technology is biotechnology that dissolves completely and seamlessly into nature. They turned bacteria into workers and food into vaccines, not fighting nature, but reprogramming it. What we found in their bones is proof of an intellect that understood life at a level we only dream of. We are not the pioneers of modern medicine, but merely latecomers wandering in the ruins of giants, trying to piece together the fragments of a grand design that has been forgotten.